Folks, how's it going? There isn't much activity in the markets this week. My portfolio's down 7.94% and the Life Strategy 100 was down by a little bit less. Life Strategy 1860 are doing their job as less volatile holdings. And if we have a look where all this came from, we can see here that it's pretty broad. These are all pretty consistent, nothing major. Scottish Mortgage is a bit worse than most. Barclays is worse. NatWest isn't so bad actually, compared to Barclays anyway. Yeah, and then UPS, Schroeder Real Estate Income, and Gore Street Energy have all done pretty badly. But then the other blue ones have done pretty well. Target Healthcare, Land Securities, Next Energy, and Trig. And then Fundsmith, there's the numbers there. Yeah, nothing massively out of the ordinary. Well, I suppose on the plus side, there's a couple of outliers in L'Oreal. I don't know if there's any news for it. Procter & Gamble stood up pretty well, and so did, what was the other one? It was Church & Dwight. So yeah, on the positive side. But yeah, I mean, overall, Fundsmith is just as bad as the rest of the portfolio, really, down 7.2%. I'm trying to think back to, I think the last time things like this were happening was during COVID. And I felt the same then. I was just not really fussed. I just figure these things always work themselves out in the end, some way or the other. I'm kind of stealing. Yeah, in this video here, Rob Berger said something at some point. I can't be bothered finding it, but he said something, and I was like, yeah, that's exactly how I feel. These things, he said he has no idea how it'll get resolved, but at some point it'll get resolved in some way or the other, and eventually the markets will recover. And it's nothing, and you need to just stay calm. And that's how I feel. You know, these things happen all the time. You never know. It's always something different. But every time the market goes down, there is a reason for it. These downturns, there's always a reason. There's always something spooking the markets when it goes down 7%. COVID happens and it goes down 20-odd%. And then things get resolved, or they might not obviously get resolved, but they kind of work themselves out gradually, and things go up again. Even if it's a I'll go to the S&P for this one. Even if it's a long time, you know, eventually they sort each other out, sort themselves out. I mean, 7 years is a long time, but you know, that's my investment trust was still increasing their dividends every year throughout this period, and global markets recovered faster than the S&P 500 in this time, because the S&P 500 is where all of the overpriced stocks were at the time. And then again here, you know, things were happening and they recovered eventually. But yeah, all along these times there was always a reason for the market falls, and eventually things went up. I mean this is a bad time, but this is just the US market, and eventually the US market did fantastically over that time period. So anyway, just a little perspective. I was pondering, well, not really. Because the thing is, when most of these changes were happening, I was travelling from Great Yarmouth to Cambridge. So I was just kind of looking at this spreadsheet on my phone, so I wouldn't have really been able to properly think about making any moves when things are going down. But yeah, I don't know, I was just pondering. I was noticing Barclays and NatWest, Barclays in particular. I was thinking maybe I could top up some of that at some point, but I wasn't quite sure what to sell, because the thing that was standing up pretty well was Land Securities, but I'm like, I don't know, I kind of like that one. I don't know. And I'd only just got into it, so I hadn't really given it a chance anyway. So, yeah, I don't know. I think in the end, I've decided that I'm probably just not going to do anything. Just let it be. I think probably since America's doing badly, this jam substitute here that I'm pondering with that little formula, if that gets to zero and it doesn't, so the change doesn't change my income, then I could possibly sell these three and just abort the mission on those three really bad holdings. At least I'd be aborting it without changing my income, and I'd be getting into something that had done badly in the very recent times, even though obviously they're still terrible investments if I sold here. I don't know, sometimes they say to sell your losers, don't they? So maybe I should do that at some point if JP Morgan American gets to a zero there. Although actually, having said that, this week they did announce a dividend raise, and I'm keeping the old one there just as like a little barometer of how these investments have done compared to Jam. But if we look here, this is the real yield of the trust. It's 1.22%. They had a humongous dividend raise. So actually, if I did make the switch, it would be going positive now. But just for my tracking of whether I want to do the switch or not, I'm going to keep it as it was before. So we can see there that actually it would be a 38% increase in my income. But you know, that's not how I'm deciding when or if to switch. One move I'm looking at here, because in my head I've always wanted to get merchants kind of level with the other three, and I've also had my eye on the yield of City of London and the yield of merchants, and I was thinking like 1 percentage point difference, I might rebalance some into merchants from City of London. And as we can see at the close on Friday, which I wasn't around to actually do anything with, so I couldn't have done this because I was travelling at the time to Cambridge. So if that yield differential stays at 1 percentage point or more, I might put a few grand into merchants from City of London. But yeah, and Lowland, yeah, the difference isn't big enough to. I have some Lowland in my GIA, so it would be nice if that yield was lower, if that had been doing better. But yeah, as things stand, I can't actually utilise the ISA allowance to make that move into merchants because City of London's all in tax wrappers. All right, so that's the performance and the dividends. We had quite a few, 191 quid. What's the bookmarked by? Not bookmarked, what's the phrase? Next Energy and Barclays. And then a load of tiddlers in the middle. Yeah, so that's that. Lots of dividends came through, probably because it was the end of the month on Monday. So yeah, most of them were on Monday. So Monday we had the half-year report from Aberdeen Asia Focus. Share price return was plus 8.8%. So, and the NAV was slightly lower, so the discount must have come in slightly. But the benchmark was a negative 1.9% return. Anyway, so the only other thing I like to sort of keep an eye on is the prospect for dividends, and they've said here that they've got a target of at least 6.42 pence for the year. They're as usual, they're pretending that this is like a dividend progression every year for however many years, however many decades. But as I've moaned about before, you know, there's these specials that go up, they go down, they disappear completely occasionally. So yeah, a guarantee of a minimum of 6.42p is actually a dividend decrease, because as we can see, it was 7.42. Probably is realistic that it would go down, because if we look at the revenue section here, we can see that for the 6 months, their revenue per share, which is kind of the dividends of the underlying portfolio, is down to 2.6p from 3.4p the same period the year before. So if we do a quick sum on that, it's down like, oh, I think I did that sum wrong, didn't I? Oh no, that's right. Yeah, so it's down 23.7%. In my mind, we're probably going to get that 6.42p minimum. We're probably not going to get a special based on those numbers. But I mean, I kind of have it earmarked in as 6.42p anyway. That's how it is in my spreadsheet. So yeah, no big deal. It's only a maximum of a couple of £100 I get from this one anyway, so not a big deal if we don't have a special this year. And then obviously tomorrow is the beginning of the new tax year, so obviously on Monday I'll be able to use more of my ISA. I'd gone in here and prepared myself to move Fundsmith into a pie. Well, I've actually done, so what I've done in the ISA, I've created this Fundsmith-ish Pie. It's just nice to have all of those small holdings that were part of Fundsmith. It's nice to have them just show here as one. It's a lot neater, like I have with the SCHD. So obviously I mentioned that I haven't done this before because a load of it is in the invest account, so it's at the moment it's incomplete. Early next week I'll get all these Fundsmith holdings here, which are currently in the invest account rather than the ISA. I'll sell all those and buy them all in the ISA. We'll have all of the holdings in the one pie that's in the ISA. Just thought I'd show how I'd set it all up. I just imported all of the holdings. The slight annoying thing is that it's always giving me these slightly unbalanced things. Obviously it's different because some of the holdings are in the invest account, that's why it says that now. But obviously from time to time this is going to happen anyway, because things obviously move from, you know, the moment you set the pie up, it stays static. But obviously you want the portfolio to just run. So if the winners will be the winners and they'll increase in the percentages, you're not going to rebalance it back to the percentage it was when you set up the pie. So eventually this little thing will come in and say slightly unbalanced again at some point, even if it starts off not saying that. So yeah, I guess every now and again when the portfolio develops, I'd have to go in there and just put the numbers closer to what they are, simply to get rid of this little warning sign here. It's a little bit annoying. I wish there was an option just to say, look, I don't want to rebalance this all the time. I just want to let the pie run. I'm setting the percentages now, but from that point on, I want you to adjust the percentages with my holdings. So put the percentages equal to my weightings. And then if at some point in the future I want to adjust that, I can go in myself. And then when you add money to the portfolio, you're spreading it according to the current weightings rather than the weightings when you set it up. So that's how it works when you put money into a unit trust or a open-ended investment company. You put the money in, it goes in there at the percentage that they currently hold, not at the percentage they were like a week ago or the percentage they started off as. Like, I've got a feeling Fundsmith starts all of his new positions at 2%. That's my guess. So when you put new money into his fund, you don't get 2% of every holding. You get the current weightings, which is, and those weightings have come from how the companies have grown relative to each other. So it would be nice if these pies would allow you just to set up a pie so that the weightings move with the holdings. That would be nice for me anyway. And then you can adjust it yourself. But on the other hand, the more options they put in, the harder it is for people to use. So I can understand not like going for every single option, and that there's more scope for confusion as well then, isn't there? If there's too many options on these things, it's already pretty complex as it is, I suppose. Oh yeah, it was the formal offer for Assura. So basically they've just given an actual formal merger offer. So it's a little bit of cash and it's 0.3848 new PHP shares. And if you look at the numbers, it's pretty much the same as the other offer that they're possibly going to get for Assura. Obviously the market's not stupid. It saw that it wasn't such a great deal, or nothing particularly good. On the day that news came out, there wasn't a big boost in the share price or anything, because this is some amazing deal. If you work out the numbers, it's pretty much the NAV of Assura. So it's nothing amazing, and the market took it that way. So yeah, my heart kind of sunk a little bit when I saw this RNS was here, because obviously I sold out of Assura, and I was wondering whether I was going to have a similar situation as I did with Harmony Energy, where I left like 10% on the table. There was that second offer that came in, wasn't there? And I missed out on the 10% because I sold it after the first offer. Impax Environmental Markets had its annual financial report released. Yeah, so the revenue, which underlines the dividend, was a bit below last year, but in recent years this one has had quite a big boost in its dividend because of these revenues going up. Yeah, so 4.5% lower than last year. I always focus on the dividend because everything else I just don't have an opinion on, to be honest. That's why we pay the money for them to manage it. But yeah, as you can see, recent years had quite a bit of a dividend increase. This wasn't announced today. This was previously announced. Yeah, 8.6% for this year, which has already been paid. So yeah, I doubt, given the revenue per share has gone down by about 5%. I wouldn't expect any increase this year, because it's another one of these that doesn't bother. It just doesn't care about the dividend. It just pays what it has to. The City of London dividend dividend declared. And this is the one where they increase it every year. So that we can see there that they've gone from 5.25p to 5.4p. So they've said in that RNS that they plan for the fourth dividend of the year to be that as well. So if we do that, it shows a yearly increase of 3.4%, which I think is still lagging inflation. If I remember correctly, that's still lagging inflation. For the calendar year 2024 anyway, yeah, 3.58%. But who knows what the best one to use is. Oh, so it's ahead of CPI, and is it ahead of CPIH? It's a little bit ahead of CPIH too for the calendar year 2024. Yeah, so yeah, that's nice to see some improvement there. I think it was about 40 quid a year that I got it increased by. Yeah, about 40 quid a year extra. Yeah, that was the end of the news. As usual, when markets tumble like this, that's normally the time where I start seeing how much cash I've got and whether I can add any to it. So I did this yesterday. After I put that money into I can't remember the thing I bought with the cash that I put into the market recently. Was it Trig or was it Land Security? No, it wasn't Land Security. It might have been Trig. But anyway, yeah, so I've got about 18 grand. Obviously, in the next couple of months, I'll be getting my bonus from the LISA and the SIP. I was thinking to myself, I'm just doing man maths again. I'm thinking to myself, if I do I really? Because one of the reasons I've kind of put myself at 20 grand cash that I want outside of the portfolio is that if at any moment I need or want to move back to England, I want to buy myself a car for about 10 grand. I want to have like about 10 grand to possibly throw at 6 months rent up front because I've no job and I don't know how to qualify for rent and stuff. But then I'm thinking to myself, oh, maybe I could just not get the car. If I do at a moment's notice need to move to England and rent a flat, maybe I could just go without the car because I've lived quite happily without a car for the past couple of years. So, maybe I could put about 7 grand in. I was thinking to myself, but I don't know. It's silly. At some point, I need to stop and just let the cash stay. Stop putting more and more into the market and keep my buffer, because it is a comfortable buffer to have that 20 grand, which, well, hopefully soon will be back up to 20 grand. Yeah, so I think I'm just going to leave it. I'm going to let things just happen. All right, I think that's it then. I'll see you next week, and hopefully we'll have some more drama. Groceries. What a word groceries is.